Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to resume our updates. Next up is our Data Protection and Privacy Committee. Quick reminder to everyone, we are recording these sessions. Both the recordings and the slides materials will be available shortly after the meeting. Slides first, the recordings may take a day or so to become available themselves. Without further ado, Thomas and PK, take it away on the DPPC update.
Thanks, Mike. Thomas, will you do the update?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, PK. Hello, this is Thomas Rivera. So a quick update on the Data Protection and Privacy Committee. Both PK and myself are the co-chairs, and our charter is listed here. Some of the completed work that we've done in 2021 are listed here. We helped Security Twig with the industry advisory on data sanitization. That was actually work being done actually in IEEE, but we did some work on that particular standard. Also did some what is pages on specific items of data privacy and ransomware. So did some contributions for that, and then did a couple of webcasts, and we did a few blogs, and those are posted for all to see under the SNIA.org website. Did some presentations at last year's SDC, continue to work on preparing for some more this year as well. Started working with the IAPP, that stands for the International Association of Privacy Professionals, and we just came to an agreement and started some work with them towards the end of last year. And that's specific in the privacy area. So that's sort of exciting work that we'll be collaborating on. We've already done some cross collaboration in terms of speaking engagements. In fact, a few of the actual members of IAPP spoke at our SDC last year. And then also gave some feedback on a couple of ISO standards that are being worked on, which were already mentioned as part of Eric's Security Twig update, and a few other documents as well from either ISO or IEEE, respectively. Next slide, please. So some of the work items are really on the goals of being strategic, educational, collaborative. We have a whole bunch of things working with some other groups, probably most heavily with the Security Twig for probably obvious reasons. There's a lot of cross-pollination on some of the work items that we happen to collaborate on, and also we'll be continuing to do the collaboration with the International Association of Privacy Professionals, which we just started last year, the IAPP. Next slide. Thank you. And these are a list of the active members that join our weekly call. There's probably over 130 subscribers to our list, but these are the most active members that we see showing up at the calls on a weekly basis. Next slide, please. And then expected industry impact of the work. So, the obvious ones are, we work or help with standards work, do some work in the areas of analyzing some of the legislation that either currently exists or being developed from a privacy perspective, and also some of the best practices on a bunch of different topics in the realm of data protection and privacy issues. The obvious industry segment relevance is things like the storage security standard, which is, as Eric mentioned in the Security Twig update a while ago, earlier this morning. The most obvious one would be the ISO 27040, which is currently in revision. So we're assisting with some of the edits to that. And then also the data sanitization standard, which is currently being wrapped up in IEEE, but we're provided some collaboration work on that as well. And then looking at how important it is from a data privacy perspective, realizing that it's impacting a lot of what companies and all kinds of organizations are dealing with from a privacy regulation standpoint. That's some of the relevance to why we do what we do, which is in the world of data privacy. So obviously, a call to action for those that are interested in joining, and why you would is what's listed here: data privacy legislation. We do a lot of work in that area. The cybersecurity as it relates to storage, a lot of activity happening. We did some recent work in fact, this was one of our recent presentations that we did for STC, was a talk on ransomware and some of the data protection strategies to combat that issue. Who to contact is listed here, myself and PK as the co-chairs, and then we have a facilitator Paul Talbot, working for us as well. So thanks for the update. I think that's all I had for today.
Thanks, Thomas. Just wanted to add that this is one of the fastest growing area we see, data protection and privacy. And our second on SNIA website, data privacy and ransomware is the second most visited page. And if some of you saw, some predictions just came last week that the data protection market in next 10 years from 22 to 2032 is going to grow at a 31% CAGR from $2 billion market to $18 billion market. So very exciting area to work in.
Indeed. Thank you, PK and Thomas. I think for all of us that are involved in storage, data protection is at the core and fundamental principles of storage technologies. Of course, taking that to the next step and beyond, and looking at data privacy are critical aspects of our future as an industry, and encourage all those that have a passion for this, both personally and seeking within your companies, the groups and individuals that have official and formal responsibilities in data protection and privacy, as well as legislative impact and regulatory impact on products and services your companies develop and sell. Please consider joining this group. Lastly, there was a mention of the What Is page. This has been a long-standing, interesting aspect of SNIA. We had a What Is a SAN page, and for the longest time, it was the most visited page on the SNIA website. Partially natural language syntax, especially with Siri, Alexa, and all the other voice-driven search engines these days. It's natural language for someone to just naturally ask, what is a SAN? We invested over 2 years ago on building out a further repository of key storage technologies in that similar format. What is NAS? What is data privacy? Or what is data security? So please consider that for your own respective groups. If you don't already have a What Is page for your technology, they're getting tremendous amount of traction and helping provide basic education for those in the industry and out on the web as to the respective storage technologies that we represent and work on in SNIA. Thanks again to the DPPC group. Up next is our NSF group. John Kim, take it away.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the short presentation on the Networking Storage Forum, or NSF. So hang on, let me just, hide my panel of participants here in Zoom. So I believe Christine McMonagle from Intel is co-presenting with me. Christine?
Hey, John. Hey, everyone.
Hi, Christine is now the vice chair of the SNIA NSF. So I'd like to congratulate Christine on joining the leadership of the NSF. So as most of you know, but let's review it. The NSF drives the broad adoption and awareness of storage networking solutions, but we go beyond just pure storage networking. So we cover the protocols, including block storage, file storage, and object storage protocols, but also related topics, including virtualized storage, hyperconverged solutions, storage security, and more. So for example, we branched into topics related to storage for AI, or new storage, or talked about some of the new SNIA storage management initiatives around NVMe over fabrics. We accomplish our mission by delivering webcasts, publishing white papers and articles. We have a lot of blogs, and we also leverage social media to promote this. So as I will talk about, we have one of the, either the first or second most popular series of webcasts and blogs within SNIA, depending on the month or quarter. And that's the majority, or that's the most active part of what we do. Yeah, thank you. Some of what we did in 2021, a little summary. So we've been, of course, working as a team across different members of NSF to promote networked storage. We produced 10 webcasts focusing on being educational and vendor neutral. We have a pretty good average of 800 views per webcast. So we've gone up to actually much higher, and even our less popular webcasts typically get 400 or 500 views, and our more popular ones will get close to 1,500 or maybe even up towards 2,000 views. So some of our topics were very popular were the Great Storage Debate. This was, we've done a few of these, but last year it was hyperconverged versus disaggregated versus centralized storage. That was very popular. We also did NVMe over fabrics, looking beyond performance hero numbers. So talking about different aspects of the performance of NVMe over fabrics. We did one on SAN, specifically on Fiber Channel, going into the details of how Fiber Channel hosts and targets communicate and discover each other. That was very popular. And we did one on next generation connectors and cables, talking about the different types of cables, optical, copper, different connectors used for the newer and faster speeds, and how different cables are set up are ideal for different distances and uses. And we also had a very popular webcast on object storage. We posted 23 blogs last year, over 16,000 views. The majority of our blogs are either promoting our webcasts or covering, answering questions asked during the webcast. Plan for 2022. So we want to explore all technologies related to networked storage. So we're going to continue our series on automotive storage. We had one that was pretty popular, and we're planning to have probably some more, at least one more top webcast on automotive storage. We're kicking off a series of, it's going to be 2, 3, or 4, probably 3, but webcasts about Edge. So Life at the Edge is a series. Again, we've done a few of these series that have been very popular. And our first one is coming up tomorrow. We're going to talk about use cases for storage at the edge or related to the edge, supporting the edge. And we'll probably do, again, about probably 3 webcasts on that topic. We're also going to do a series on the XPU, different kinds of, well, now I say it, PUs. It sounds like something smelly, but in fact, it's something interesting for servers where they can offload networking, storage, security, or other tasks, management tasks. And they go by various names, but we're planning to do a series on these and how they can, what they can accelerate, what they do, how they help out, and how they might relate to computational storage. And we expect to have a few more webcasts on NVMe over fabrics and on storage security. Also planned, or what we'd like to do for 2022, is continue and maybe expand cross-collaboration with other SNIA groups. So there's a security technical working group, a work group, that we want to get involved with, because a lot of security, not all of it, but a lot of security is related to networked access or the network or networked storage. And we also would like to work with CMSI on computational, particularly on computational storage. And we're open to working with all groups. So for example, we might do something more in object storage with CMSI. I'm sorry, with CTSI, for the cloud group. And we're also interested in working with external groups, including NVM Express, Open Fabrics Alliance, the IETF, and FCIA. So for example, our previous webcast about fiber channel discovery, we didn't directly do that with FCIA, but we had prominent people who were also active members in FCIA as our presenters. Current membership as of the beginning of this year, We have 12 members, so doing pretty well. You know, we may have lost one or two in the last year, because I think last year we actually had probably a record number of members, or recent with a record for recent years. So you can see our members here. Let's go on to the next slide. And we invite all members of SNIA, you know, vendors, customers, universities, academics, independents, to participate in NSF. We'd love to have you share your ideas, help us educate vendors and customers. We think NSF, SNIA in general, but NSF in particular, is an excellent place to promote the SNIA brand and to get an education, as well as showcase your company and yourself in terms of what you know and what you do and your areas of expertise, as well as the types of technology and products that your company has. We do focus on being vendor neutral on the webcasts, but we do generally talk about, of course, everything we talk about is pretty much related to products that exist from various vendors and technologies that exist from various vendors. So while we don't promote the vendors, we do talk about products more broadly across the industry, and, you know, current products, new products, etc. So we, again, would love to have people participate. We think it's a pretty fun group. We don't have a twig within NSF. So our primary focus is education, sharing the knowledge, as well as networking and having fun. So if you're interested in getting involved, please contact myself or Christine, and we'd be happy to have you join us.
Thank you for the update, John, and welcome to the leadership of the group, Christine. Sounds like a lot of fun for the year ahead, and congrats on all the work and results for 2021 as well. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Up next, the Cloud Storage Technologies Initiative Group. Alex McDonald from all the way from Southern England.
Oh, goodness, I'm amazed you remembered. Well done. Well done, Michael. So the CSTI, what do? We are the Cloud Storage Technologies Initiative. We're committed to the adoption, growth, and standardization of storage in cloud infrastructures. This encompasses data services, orchestration, and management, as well as promotion of portability of data in multi-cloud environments. And to make it absolutely clear, it also covers everything that touches on the cloud storage. And you'll see that as we go through the presentation. We've not limited ourselves to just talking about storage. So our accomplishments in 2021, I think we had a really good year, actually. In terms of webcasts and blogs, which are our primary vehicles to raise awareness, we did 12 webcasts in FY21. And when I show you the member list shortly, you'll see why that's such a terrific number. We've had over 5,000 total views, and we get pretty good ratings for our presentations. One is, as you probably know, a rating of 1 on a presentation is, I think I should have been doing something else. And a rating of 5 is, more please, I'm really enjoying this. So we're getting pretty good ratings on the presentations, and I think some of that has rubbed off onto getting some interesting topics as well. I think that's expanded our topic list while we were at it. And if you look and see what we've done over the year, we've done things like moving genomics data to the cloud. I mean, there's a big push at the moment about big data, about hyperscale data, and we've done a good few presentations on this particular subject. We've talked about confidential computing. We've talked about cloud data management. We support the cloud data management twig, so we're actually a part of that twig is actually part of this initiative, and we've done presentations on their behalf. We've also done a lot of blogs. The blogs tend to be Q&A type blogs that answer questions from the presentations that we've done or introduce the presentation in the first place. And some of the more popular ones were on edge computing and the impact of AI on storage, which was a very interesting presentation that we did this year. The infographic, if you're interested, is in the link below, and I think the links will be clickable when we get to get the copies of the slides, but you'll be able to see this range of a program that we have and exactly what it is we're doing. So for 2022, we've always had this thing about moving beyond just talking about storage in the cloud, and we're covering technologies that are immediately next to it and integral to actually operating clouds. So we're proposing to talk about things like cloud basics. We think we need to talk a little about terminology and definitions because that's changed over the last couple of years, and there's been an awful lot of new technology introduced. And for example, a simple Venn diagram of what we mean by hybrid, private, multi-cloud, I think might be quite useful for the average Joe out in the field looking to understand a little more about cloud. We're going to talk more about edge storage, and the NSF, as you've seen, are also talking about edge storage, and no doubt we'll bump into each other when we do these presentations. Cloud security and data governance, and I think that's one area that is really beginning to take off, the idea that security, everyone's become paranoid, and we're going to help them be even more paranoid, because cloud security is one, I think, of the topics that we've not really given justice to over the previous 12, 24 months. So we're going to start doing that. We're going to talk more about performance at scale, AI and ML. And an interesting one here, the impact of 5G. I'm a great believer in the fact that wherever the network goes, storage and compute follow shortly thereafter. So we're going to take a look at the impact of 5G on cloud, and in particular cloud storage, and how we implement new cloud strategies in the face of new network technologies like 5G. And we're going to continue to focus on real world use cases. You'll find a lot of the presentations pretty use case heavy, and I think that's really important for the audience, in that we're not getting too academic. We're actually talking about things that really matter to them. Our new series that we're going to start shortly is called 15 Minutes in the Cloud, and we're going to do some terminology definitions and overviews by having conversations about key cloud topics. We're launching March 2nd, 2022 with what is cloud. And then on future sessions, we'll talk about cloud application architectures, cloud data privacy and security, provider storage offerings. So there's going to be a range of really quite compact presentations. They may actually be shorter than 15 minutes, but they're going to be conversational, really quick and easy to digest, rather than the rather longer kind of webcast that we've been traditionally doing. Just something shorter that's easier to consume and focuses on the basics. Our membership as of January this year with those companies, it's a small group, but we do exceptionally well. We've got an interesting set of topics coming up for this year. And I think that with the current members that we have of the group, and any new members, anyone is willing to join, move to the next slide and we can discuss how to do that. So to get participating, just basically get in contact with myself. You can see I'll respond to the email cstichair@snia.org, or our co-chair, Michael Hode of Intel. We're focused on delivering education, awareness of cloud trends, technologies, etc. And I think the webcasts that we've done this past year point favorably to what we're going to be doing this coming year as well. I think we've got a really good program together. Next slide. Basically, come along. Everyone's got something to talk about cloud. And if you don't, then I'm wondering what you're doing in this business. I mean, if cloud isn't part of your business strategy, then it really would be a complete mystery to me. So bring your important topics to us. Join us as a team. We'd love to see you.
Excellent. Thank you for the update, Alex.
Thank you.
Now return to the regular programming session of a good beer at a pub. Enjoy happy hour. We are in. Up next is an update on one of the largest groups in SNIA, the Compute Memory and Storage Initiative. And Bill Martin, the newly elected chair of CMSI. The floor is yours.
So thank you, Michael. I'd like to start, hopefully Alex hasn't dropped off at the pub yet, to thank Alex for all of his contributions to CMSI through the years. As a former chair, he has contributed so much to this very large organization and the effort that they've done. So Alex, thank you very much for all that you have done for CMSI.
Thank you, Bill.
As Michael mentioned, CMSI is one of the largest initiatives within SNIA. We report to the board of directors, and this chart is here to kind of show you the interactions that we have. We have an education committee and a marketing committee, but in addition to that, we have 3 special interest groups, and we'll talk a little bit more of those later. We interact with the communication steering committee as we put out lots of information. We interact with the SNIA technical work groups, and you see a list here. We support formally the computational storage SIG, SDXI Twig, the solid state storage Twig, the IOTA Twig, and the work that the NVM programming Twig put out prior to their dissolution. We also have an informal support for the SFF TA Twig in terms of the SSD form factors. We also have a number of alliances, so we work with the SNIA Strategic Alliance Committee. Next slide, please. So, mission and accomplishments. So our overall mission, I'm just going to read the CMSI mission to you. The CMSI is dedicated to fostering the growth and success of the market for solid state storage, computational storage, persistent memory, and other advanced storage technologies in both commercial and consumer environments. So our goal is to promote storage, whatever form it is, whether it is storage or memory. CMS-wide accomplishments, successful completion of the 9th Annual Persistent Memory Summit and the 2nd Annual Persistent Memory and Computational Storage Summit. So 2 years ago, we joined computational storage a year ago, we joined computational storage and persistent memory and held the first combined summit for the 2 of those. Continued outreach and education on SNIA technical working group standards and specifications. Support of SNIA strategic alliances, only 2 of them got listed here. We actually have 4 strategic alliances that we're involved with. We sponsored 3 SNIA SDC events and 7 industry events, and they're listed here on the slide. So we're doing a lot of work. We're very active. I'll come to the call for participation later on in the presentation. Just to give you an overview, the computational storage SIG has done education and outreach on the CS Twigs specifications. They're doing continued research and documentation of computational storage use cases. They did 3 webcasts and 4 educational videos on computational storage basics this year. They did computational storage presentations at Interop Digital, and they were very active in and driving the computational portion of the computational storage and persistent memory summit. The persistent memory SIG, they continue to do education and outreach on the NVM programming model that was completed by the NVM programming Twig. They continue education on persistent memory programming, including PM workshops and hackathon programs. We had over 400 student attendees at these workshop and hackathons. They did 1 webcast and 1 educational video on persistent memory basics. They also were very active in driving the Persistent Memory and Computational Storage Summit. And finally, but maybe most importantly, they had a kickoff meeting with SDXI Twig chairs to understand the specification and their goals and plans for 2022. And SDXI will be supported from an education and outreach point of view by the Persistent Memory SIG. The Solid State Drive SIG continues education and outreach on solid state storage specifications and EDSFF. They did publication of the NVMe SSD classification white paper and did outreach on the NVMe SSD classifications webpage material. They did an update of the storage total cost of ownership material and outreach to help people understand the total cost of ownership of storage. Continued support and enhancement of the outreach on SSD form factor webpage and materials. So we have a webpage that details the SSD form factors that we attempt to keep updated, and had briefings to 8 industry analysts on SSD SIG. Next slide, please. So work items. You'll see we have 2 slides of work items. We have this kind of broken down because in CMSI, we have things that are initiative-wide. They cover everything. And then we have work items that are done by each of our SIGs. So initiative-wide, we are planning participation in 6 industry events this year, which are the OFA Virtual Workshop, Pearl, FMS, OCP Global Summit, and Intel Innovation, and Supercomputing 22. We will be supporting SNIA SDC events, all 3 of them. We will be putting on a persistent memory and computational storage summit, and we'll come to that in a future slide. This date is inaccurate. The next slide's dates are accurate. That was something that we worked at deciding on the dates just in time to get it prepared for this presentation. Our goal is to do 1 blog per month on the SNIA CMSIblog.org, and to include web questions and answers. That's one of our biggest things of our blogs, is being able to take Q&As that we get from our webcasts and make certain that we blog about them to let people know what's going on, and it draws people back into looking at those webcasts. Computational Storage SIG will be doing continued support of the computational storage activities at company and industry events, end user evangelism on computational storage use, continue work on storage use cases, and the goal is to do 3 webcasts and 4 educational videos over the course of this year. PMCS, continue to look at use cases and documenting use cases for persistent memory, expand the PM programming videos and hackathon events, and evangelism and outreach on SDXI Twigs specifications. That will be one of the key things this year, is focusing on SDXI as we move into that new arena of memory interface. Solid state drive SIG, support and education of new memory types, the expansion of support on EDSFF deployments and use cases, continuing work on the TCO for SSDs, develop an Ethernet drive web page, and continue to support the SNIA Twig work of the SFF TA Twig and solid state storage Twig. Next slide. So this goes not so much into work items per se, but the Twigs that we are supporting. I already mentioned them. We support the computational storage Twig. They've got 2 specifications. The SDXI Twig that has a specification, and the solid state storage Twig, which has a new specification coming out as well. Hopefully you were all on the earlier part and heard what each of these Twigs are doing. But then we also have external group alliances and collaboration activities. So we have alliances with the CXL Consortium, NVM Express, Open Fabrics Alliance, and the SCSI Trade Association. And in all of those, we are working for joint marketing and outreach work on those activities that cross the boundary between the 2. Additionally, we have collaboration activities with JEDEC, in particular for the NVDIMM-P specification support and automotive SSD standard support. So we try to coordinate with them and what's going on there. Save the date, important, upcoming, May 10th to 11th, 2022. is this year's PMCS Summit. It will return as a virtual event. It will be good when we can get back together face to face, but for now, we will be doing the virtual event. We've done a little different format. We're going to do 2 half days of live keynotes and panel sessions. In addition to the live keynotes and panel sessions, we are soliciting breakout sessions. The pre-recorded breakout sessions will be released concurrently with the event. So when the event starts, all of those pre-recorded breakout sessions will be released. There are virtual demo opportunities. The topics that we're interested in people coming and presenting and talking about and discussing include the future of persistent memory, DRAM, and form factors, PM, CS, and PM plus CS use cases. Market and analysis update, the latest on the computational storage architecture and programming model and the API, and the CXL Consortium and NVM Express Alliance activities. And I should actually throw in here the other thing that we'd like to see is if there's something that we can pull in on SDXI. Look for the call for presentations and sponsorship information coming very soon. Anticipate it sometime next week. Next slide. As was mentioned, we are one of, if not the largest initiative within SNIA. We have, from what you can see here, 36 company members. In addition to what's shown on this slide, we have 8 individual members. You'll note that we got 2 new members in fiscal year 2021, which ended on the last day of November. We also have 3 new members that have come on board since the 1st of December. So we are continuing to grow. We hope that we're meeting people's needs. Next slide. Who to contact at CMSI? I am the chair. I would like to really express my appreciation to Leah as the vice chair and Willie as the treasurer. They are great support and really appreciate all of that. In addition to that, the education committee is chaired by Tom Coughlin. The marketing committee is co-chaired by Tim Lustig and David McIntyre. CMSI SIG is chaired by David McIntyre. The Persistent Memory SIG co-chairs are Arthur Sainyo and Raghu Kulkarni. And finally, the Solid State Storage Drive SIG is chaired by Cameron Brett. I want to mention one other person that if you are doing anything with CMSI that you will probably get to know and appreciate, and that is our contract support person, which is Marty Fulton. She is instrumental in preparing slides, preparing all of the stuff that we need in CMSI. Really appreciate her help. Next slide. So why should you participate in SNIA CMSI in 2022, and what do we hope to do? We expect to have significant education deliverables. We hope to be the place to go for information on SSD form factors, NVMe classifications, and TCO. By participating, you get an expanded reach to your end users. You gain implementation knowledge of the NVM programming model, benefits, and application of persistent memory application. We're relevant, as our name says, to the computational storage industry, to the memory industry, and the storage industry. So come join us to engage and educate the industry on compute, memory, and storage technologies, to accelerate our standards, and to propel technology adoption. Contacts for more information, reach out to me at cmsichair@snia.org. We do have a website. On the SNIA website, we have a web page there, and we have a fact sheet. So come join us. There's lots to do, and the more the merrier.
Thank you, Bill, for the update and the entire team that supports the activities of CMSI. Fantastic work. Look forward to the summit again later this year. Hopefully everyone saved that date, and to more great work in the year ahead. Wanted to open the floor to Wayne Adams and Chris Sleuth for an update on GSI.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being involved here today. Co-chairs are Chris Luth and myself. Earlier today, you heard about the Green Technical Work Group, and this afternoon it's the Green Storage Initiative. If you're on the East Coast in the morning, or another part of the world. What the Green Storage Initiative does is wrap programs, alliances, and funding models around the technical work group so that the technical specification be created and rolled out to the world. Our objective is still one specification that can be tested, test once and report anywhere. And it's a challenge working with different regulatory bodies to educate them on the value of what the SNIA Emerald specification does and why you want to have fair and unbiased testing. And so a lot of work goes into the alliance work. A lot of work goes into the white papers that are talked about that are jointly created with the Green Grid. A lot of times it's a little bit confusing to say, well, what's the initiative doing versus what the Twig is doing? And at this point in time, the majority of the work that is being done by the initiative is in support of creating the program around the specification. Years ago, we used to have a lot of other focus areas around energy efficiency and white papers and design specifications for data centers and so on. And we just don't have the critical mass to carry that out. So we're working on the most critical factor that the members want to have developed and ensured here by focused on the specification and having that adopted at a worldwide level. That reduces your engineering costs inside of your departments to make products sellable in all the different geographies. Next slide, please. Accomplishments is that back in 2020 we launched 4.0 specification as well as the tester kit. We ran the education programs for that, and then as those get rolled out and get cross-referenced by regulatory bodies, then vendors and independent test labs come back to SNIA for questions and clarifications. And so we continually provide industry support to anyone that's out in the industry. It's not just SNIA membership, but it's industry labs and regulatory bodies and even members of SNIA. Some of the ongoing work that we do in relationships is with the USA's Energy STAR program, the Environmental Protection Agency, and we've helped them understand what would be fair thresholds for minimum power efficiency metrics that should be met to be then listed as an energy efficient deployment. And that work took probably about 5+ years of data collection and then data analysis and architecture analysis. And then we worked that back through the EPA, and that was reflected in their launch of the data center storage version 2.0 specification that then went live this past year. We have an agreement with the Green Grid where they have a data center storage type of focus, and they primarily focus on regulatory lobbying and education, and SNIA tends to focus in on the technical nuts and bolts that go into that type of lobbying and education effort. And so with the reach of the Green Grid, who's a part of a larger organization, ITI, that relationship's important, and we've updated that alliance agreement. This past year, we did a lot of data analysis on idle disk drive technology. It was the platform that's behind the Japanese Top Runner program. It's somewhat analogous to the Energy Star program here in the United States. And we continue to maintain that that program should be using active metrics along with idle metrics. And to this date, they only continually focus on idle metrics, and we've pointed out some pitfalls in the data thresholds that they're setting for regulations that go into effect in 2023. We're still in a back and forth discussion of what's the penalties to vendors that can't meet those thresholds, where no one in the industry can make them because the industry roadmaps for certain disk drive form factors and rotational speeds don't support the ability to get to those thresholds. Every year we cooperate with the Environmental Protection Agency, and we are a collection point for unit ship data. So if you want to be part of the Energy Star program, you have to submit to the EPA or through a partner to the EPA your unit ship data. What SNIA provides is a sort of a firewall between the EPA and yourself, so that they're not micromanaging what your unit shipments are, and maybe coming up with future thresholds. So we tend to provide that as a way to anonymize data as we send it back into the EPA. Going into 2022, we're going to be looking at the test results that are being reported into the EPA for data center version 2.0 to look at the thresholds again. We have yet to set thresholds for foul IO. There's not enough data generated yet, but as the year progresses, we'll be looking at how's the threshold settings that we've defined holding up. As discussed earlier today in the Twig, we're going to be looking at the SNIA Emerald 4.x or 5.0. Part of it's looking at test tools and what would make sense to roll forward for test tools that could be used for the next 5 to 10 years. What we've been working with for the last number of years has been VD Bench and Spec SFF 2014, and we have to bring the industry forward with tools that are currently in use and supported, and help the industry understand that when we change tools, what the correlations are of old test metrics are and the new test metric data would be. We continue to partner with the Green Grid for EU regulations and input. They partner with a group called Digital Europe, because EU only wants to deal with European specific bodies. And so that's how that relationship works, of how SNIA gets input into the European Union and their evolving regulations. Sometime this year, we'll publish an updated white paper, and then also have it translated into Japanese. And this white paper is pretty informative to regulatory bodies of what the expectations are in setting thresholds and test parameters, and what some of the technology roadmaps look like as they try to look at setting climate-related thresholds for data center technology. We are working on the investigation of storage device level testing and what those metrics look like. At minimum, we'll be creating a white paper this year and releasing it. What we're currently will be launching in the coming days is a survey to revisit the value proposition for the supply chain and regulatory bodies to have a similar kind of specification of SNIA Emerald, but focused in on the device only. And for the last 6 months, we've been validating a test tool, set of test workloads, and running both solid state and hard disk drive products through the test regimen. And we've been creating some good feedback of how do we want to move forward as a collective group of vendors to meet industry value propositions. And we're in the midst of working on the EPA unit shipment report for 2021, collecting 2021 data that will be published in the month of May. And that's what we're working on there. Just as a snapshot here is that the EPA does publish every vendor that does submit a report to the EPA that meets the thresholds for data center storage version 2.0. When we were under like version 1.0 and 1.1, there was over 200 plus test reports. At this point in time, there's just 48 test reports that are in place from 7 vendors. Some vendors were able to resubmit test data from the previous version of the test regime under data center storage version 1.1 if it would meet certain thresholds. This set of data that's behind this report is what we analyze when we're looking at thresholds. So there's a very detailed report that's in there for each vendor, and you can export the whole report with as a CSV file and then bring it into Excel and do a lot of graphing and charting work with that. Next slide, please. Just briefly, this is the roadmap that the Twig has put together in conjunction with GSI, and some of the line items are specific to the programs that GSI brings together to work with the alliances and the white papers as we bring this roadmap forward. As you see, we have work that's going out into calendar year 2023 with the work that we're doing, and we need active volunteers at both the Twig level and at the GSI level to enable this work to complete as scheduled and as reflected here. Next slide, please. So some of the major work items that GSI does is the technology and testing and alliance work. So we partner with SPEC for the file IO work, Oracle today for the block IO work, and SPEC for what power meters are eligible to be used as part of measuring the actual energy being consumed by a system under test, and so on with SFlow and 80 plus and putting together what your power supply efficiency rating is, where you've probably heard of bronze, silver, gold, and platinum type of power supplies. We work on policy-related work through the Green Grid and Digital Europe to affect the European Union, and through SNIA Japan for working through JEDA, who works then with METI with the Top Runner program. And then interrelated is we do have participation in our group from SC 39 standards body. The version 3.1 of the SNIA Emerald specification is an ISO specification, and we haven't decided if we will take version 4.0 or a subsequent version through the ISO ratification process. Within SNIA, we have worked in the past with the SSM group to have profiles defined for instrumentation so that while a system is in operation, you can collect energy-related information. And then we've been partnering with the S3 technical work group on both the taxonomy that was done for NVMe, as well as what we're working on for this device level test specification to date. Next slide. We have a few companies that participate at the GSI funding level. Our dues are off to the right-hand side. Some companies choose to have their name listed because they're making certain bids in parts of the world where they have to show some level of support for green, especially if they don't have any test data out in the EPA data center storage report repository. We would need more companies to come forward this year with funding. We have 2 major programs that we're looking to fund, and they're not all done in-house with member labs and resources. At times we do have to use funding to go to independent labs and independent consultants to do test validation work, as well as tool validation work with us. And so as we look to revisit which tools are being used in the version 4.x or 5.0, that requires some testing work to both in-house as well as out-of-house to make sure that whatever we specify, independent test labs have enough skills and capabilities to pick it up and work with those tools. We're going to continue with the storage device level testing. We need to get more vendors testing and maybe some independent consultants testing to validate the methodology and architecture fairness of the test tool itself. These are the key players of the GSI. They're Chris Luth and myself as the co-chairs, and then we have two important contractors that spend most of their time inside of the Green Twig. Dave Teal is a year-round program contractor, and Patrick Stanko does a lot of our data analysis that gets spun up every time we have a point-in-time data analysis project to put forth. Next slide.
30 seconds to wrap up, Wayne.
Okay, so why get involved? This is a proactive program to stay in front of regulators. If you want to sit back and wait to see what the regulators do, you may be surprised that they've done something off the rails, and you're surprised and you're disappointed, and you'll penalize your company with incremental testing activities. This program is about being in front of the regulators, doing the test work, and then being able to give them quality test tools and methods that are unbiased against architecture that they can adopt. And then under the whole spirit of one test that's used worldwide, test once, report many times, instead of a test per geography that drives up your engineering costs. How to reach us to join? We're at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Wayne, for the update and the amazing amount of work that that group continues to do and the impact it makes in the industry. Next up is an update on the Storage Management Initiative. Rochelle, back to you.
Thank you, Michael. So we talked earlier about all the stuff that's going on with the SSM Twig. Now we'll talk about the Storage Management Initiative and the work we do to support the storage management in general. The SMI has been around for a long time supporting first SMIS and now Swordfish. However, our charter is really to support storage management and standards across the industry. So we actually take that, and our goal is really to support storage management and promote storage management standards. So that includes things that we develop within SNIA, as well as standards that form the entire ecosystem. So that includes DMTF and the Redfish standards that Swordfish extends, as well as the NVMe and NVMI that we partner with in developing Swordfish and managing that ecosystem. So honestly, even through the pandemic, we've been very, very busy. You heard a lot about CMSI, doing a lot of education. We've done a lot of that as well, but we've actually also been working a lot on helping Swordfish and working with all of our partners, going to shows virtually and physically, going back and sponsoring the Open Standards Pavilion at Supercompute. We actually put together a pavilion where we had SMI and CMSI working together with the Ethernet Alliance, the Open Fabrics Alliance, CXL, Gen Z, and FCIA participating, they're really eager to repeat that again, because they're viewed that as really valuable, getting those organizations both showing our work collaboratively, as well as hoping to repeat and bringing in some joint technical demos. We had multiple panels. It was a really, really good event, as well as highlighting the work that the organizations have been doing, both technically and collaboratively and educationally, promoting Redfish, Swordfish, the work I talked about earlier, between the four or five different organizations developing technical work. SMI is there to promote that. And we had multiple webcasts, multiple keynotes throughout the year at different events with SodaCon, at SDCs, at the OFA Summit. There's so many different events during the year and so many different presentation options. In addition to that, we're rolling out our own technical programs. The key programs within SMI have been for years and years our own SM lab, which we are extending into what we're calling the Next Gen Lab, which covers interoperability, again, across not just our own programs, but partnering with Redfish, with CMSI, and with other organizations that are working on their own standards and interoperability environments, as well as Swordfish CTP, which has really gotten pretty solid this year. Moving into 2022, we are really hitting the gas again, even more on that. Again, supporting the SSM Twig, and also looking for opportunities to extend and support the manageability activities of other Twigs. One of the things you've heard Jay talk about in the overall SNIA activity and strategy work is that manageability, security, all these activities are really key pillars of the organization, and SMI is going to be there to help support that. We're really working on accelerating that Swordfish development we talked about, and NVMe and VMEOF, and all of that key technical work. SMI is there to support the development and adoption of that through interoperability, conformance, education, and marketing activities. We're helping the development of open source tools, those conformance programs, more and more education, and presence at a lot of industry events. We're also really pushing seamless transition from other storage management standards to Swordfish, and working with our member support to develop a final stage plan for SNIS, make it very clear, the future of Swordfish. What does that look like for those that have been on SNIS, and how do they get there? We've highlighted over the last few weeks the brand new interoperability lab environment for SMI and our partners in our new Colo facility. We'll talk more about that in our annual members meeting tomorrow. So we invite everyone to come hear about that as well. And we have cleaned up a ton of that environment, and we're really looking forward to moving that forward. And again, massive partnering. So we have a very strong partner ecosystem program. We are working, continue our focus working with DMTF, with NVM Express, adding an expanded focus on OCP this year, continuing with OFA. We're also expanding our work with CXL and a lot more this year. Next slide. A little bit about what's going on in the SMI. Here's our members. We actually have, again, that three-tiered structure. We have the membership in SMI, and then we have our pay-to-play programs. So we have folks that are members of SMI, and then our members both in the lab, and then we have our two different CTP programs. The Swordfish CTP program is a little bit of a loss leader right now, and we will be working on developing some key programs and marketing programs around that this year, particularly in the NVMe space as well. On the operations side, we have our primary driver is our governing board, and we have multiple program committees under that, some standing committees that work largely in the marketing space, our interoperability lab enablement that works not only on our SM lab, but also on enabling our partner lab space as well. And then our conformance development that it continues to enable our SMIS CTP, but drives our Swordfish CTP program forward. And our SMI governing board was just seated. And for 22, I'd like to thank the rest of our governing board. We have obviously myself continuing on as chair, but I'd like to thank Chris, Barks, Barry, and Don for continuing to engage on the governing board. If there are others who would also like to join us, you are always welcome to step up and volunteer. The membership structure mirrors the SNIA membership structure for the three different programs. All right, thanks. Next. Again, SMI, we are really targeting again looking at promoting and accelerating the adoption of, first and foremost the SNIA standards, but really ensuring that we're looking at storage management standards across the board, educating on the importance of storage management and management standards, and then pushing for the adoption of management standards. We did help promote and drive SNIA Swordfish as an ISO standard in 21 for the first time. So we will now continue to drive that forward as an ISO standard. Our target segments are pretty much all storage infrastructure, physical and virtual, as one would expect. And, we're really looking at just continuing to look for folks to join the SMI and engage with our programs to accelerate the adoption of standards and drive interoperability. We believe that 2022 is a great time for folks working in the NVMe and NVMe over Fabric space to engage with SMI, look at the CTP programs, look at the lab activities in particular as great opportunities to help you accelerate your development. Our testathon program, hackathon, interoperability testing, and engaging with the conformance tests during your development phase are all great ways to help you accelerate the development and get your products out faster. For any additional info, feel free to reach out to me at any time or contact us at storagemanagement@snia.org. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for the update, Rochelle. Up next, an update on the SNIA regional groups. Many of you may not be as familiar with this work, so it's a good opportunity to get an update what is happening with SNIA EMEA, the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, with SNIA Japan, SNIA India, and of course, some of our smaller groups in Brazil, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, and the rest of the world. Without further ado, Paul, please give us a rundown of SNIA Global.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for inviting me to present. Yeah, it's good opportunity to remind everyone on the call of the global representation that SNIA has. We do have, as Michael said, a number of active regions throughout the world who are charged with representing SNIA, acting as a conduit to get all the great content and awareness of the work that's going on out into the communities that they represent. And some of you may not be aware that, some of the regions are well structured to the point where we have them registered as local businesses. They have their own board of directors representing your companies. They collect their local fees. This is a well-structured organization, and that exists across EMEA, India, and Japan. But we also have a layered structure to allow communities and committees to exist in other regions as well, and examples of that are in Brazil and Malaysia. So, all the way from individual champions who recognize the value of SNIA, all the way through to very well-structured businesses representing SNIA's work around the globe. So yeah, it's an important message to remind everyone, use this route, myself as a facilitator and coordinator, to get your content out to these groups. There have been challenges, as most of you will recognize. The pandemic has forced us to adapt, and particularly in areas of content distribution. Most of you will be aware we have a storage developer conference that was taking place annually, both in Tel Aviv and in Bangalore. We have had to switch both of those to a virtual platform. That was not without its challenges, but interestingly, having done that, it inspired a renewed interest in everything we were doing in those conferences, to the point where both EMEA and India SDCs last year created new attendance records, record numbers of sponsors. The virtual event has really captured the imagination and allowed us to expand our outreach of the content in different ways. So an interesting transition. And another point to raise is that looking at the audience demographics, you could be forgiven to think that SNIA is a US organization. There is a huge percentage of the people that we reach on a regular basis through newsletters or content that actually reside outside the US. So we are, with everything that we're doing, reaching a global audience. And it's an important reminder to everyone that the work that you're doing is going global. However, we do need constantly new volunteer support. So my message to you today is, if you have representatives, people that are interested in SNIA's work, colleagues in any of these regions, work through me, contact them, get them involved in the regional work, and help us grow the regional representation of all the work that SNIA does. Next slide, please. So in terms of work items for this year, pleased to announce that SDC in EMEA will be virtual again on April the 5th. And so the call for presentations and sponsor opportunities are now available for that. SDC India are still working on a proposed date for their event in 2022, still holding out hope that we can go back to a face-to-face environment, but we'll see how that pans out. SNIA Japan continue to do regular storage trend seminars. They've been doing those via Zoom, certainly over the last 18 months, and that trend is continuing at the moment. But again, I think once the pandemic subsides, that those will be going back to face-to-face. And of course, with all of the groups, we try to use the virtual platforms for the effective use of content distribution. We extensively use BrightTalk for webcasts. We've just introduced, starting to work with podcasts as well, to expand the use of podcasts. That's been done as a new feature in EMEA right now. Virtual meetups as well is an interesting concept. So yeah, just using the opportunity to get people engaged through virtual platforms as we've had to adapt to the prevailing conditions. Next slide. So our impact is, as I've mentioned, really to provide outlets for the great content that's being produced and the work that SNIA is doing, and bring that awareness to a global audience. We are a global association, and it's important that our work gets out to as many people as possible, but also with a degree of consistency of content and messaging. And so, you know, it's important that we have groups who understand what SNIA is doing and represents the industry and the association in the right way in each of those regions. So that's why it's important that you should join and encourage your colleagues to join in the local regions. I am the program director, so you can contact me at paul.talbot@snia.org if you would like more information. Next slide. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for the opportunity to remind everybody of the global nature of the association. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. And it is amazing to have these groups across the world that are constantly hungry to consume mostly the technical work and the educational content that SNIA develops as part of the SNIA core work. These groups, however, themselves do generate education content as well for the SDC events that were noted, as well as local meetup groups. Historically, they've also done fantastic work translating in local language the SNIA dictionary. For those that may not be aware, there is a Japan version of the SNIA dictionary that is continued effort to maintain and keep it updated as we continue to add terms. And the technical council has been in process for the last 2+ years now on a belly crawl from A to Z. I believe where it ends now at the moment. So on track for 2024 to complete. But at the full comprehensive, while we continue to add new terms in all domains as new work streams start as well. Brazil also had a translated version of it, and there's an effort in place as well to actually do a Spanish translation of the SNIA dictionary and get that out in the marketplace as well. So tremendous effort and work. They're wonderful when I was able to travel to the regions to meet the group of people there. They're extremely enthusiastic about storage technology